Thank you all for attending this talk today. In an era where data reigns supreme and the digital world continues to push boundaries, there's one topic that we can tell is the buzzword across our industry today, and it is AI. We have artificial intelligence, and we want to know how it's going to impact our cybersecurity. And I have the great professionals that he did a slight introduction, and we're going to hear a little bit more about who they are from their perspective right now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rob KNOBLAUCH, Deputy CISO, Scotiabank. Really a pleasure to be here.
George KAMIDE. I host a podcast called Bare Knuckles and Brass Tacks with my fellow co-host, George, who's a CISO, and that's about the vendor-buyer relationship in cyber.
Shinesa CAMBRIC. I'm the author of a best-selling book on cloud auditing, and in my day job, I am a product manager with Microsoft.
I love it. So we're just going to get into it, and we'll start again with you. Tell us what your take is on AI and how it fits into cybersecurity as we know it.
Well, ignoring it is definitely not an option. I think as security professionals, we're in charge with enabling new technology and innovation within our companies. Gone are the days a security person says no to things. It's more about how can we make this happen. So I think the role of the security officer is really to make sure you have the right stakeholders and how will you use AI. And that's actually a big question. What is AI? What is LLM? Let's make it specific in terms of what are the use cases? What are the exact things that you're trying to do? And then let's build a security model around that. Is it chat, type of augmentation? Is it Microsoft Copilot? Is it AI data modeling in a data warehouse? It's really specific to the use case, and that's where the conversation, in my opinion, should start.
Yeah, let's be clear. Machine learning's been in cyber for like a decade because it's really the only way to deal with the volume of data that's coming in, whether you're talking about logs or telemetry. And I think the new wrinkle is generative AI because that is not data and decisions. It's a new element which is human expression and language. And that language is essentially the code base of human professionals working in an environment. And so I'm really excited at this new way to interface with the technology in ways that we haven't before, which has really just been like classification, clustering, probabilistic modeling.
And I would echo my two panelists, but the one thing I would add there is that for us as security professionals to be advocates and be that source of trust, like what's the truth about AI and LLM and how we use that in a business setting?
I love it. Okay. How are cybersecurity teams currently leveraging AI for enhancing their security posture and protecting themselves from a breach? How is that currently being used?
Yeah. So I had to pull some metrics this morning to make sure I had the latest and greatest data. For my team, we protect Microsoft from fraud and abuse, so we also protect customers from fraud and abuse. With a $1 billion global consumer company, that's a big task for us. We currently have 1.8 billion account creation attempts every 90 days. We have over 225 million fraudulent accounts detected every 30 days, and 2.8 million spammer apps every 30 days. So without AI, it's not going to happen. I have a team of 6 professionals, and if you add in engineering and data science, that moves it up to 30. But again, for billions of accounts, there's no way that we can deal with attackers at this scale without AI.
Yeah, finding the needle in a haystack of needles is really difficult doing it from a manual perspective. I think AI, we are definitely embracing it and using it from a cybersecurity perspective around things like polymorphic virus detection, reverse malware engineering. We're also looking at it from a phishing perspective when it comes to our own phishing attacks against our own employees, using AI to kind of make it a little bit more trickier. I think, though, down the road, we're going to be using it a lot more for defensive. I look forward to the day where, do you remember back in the day with Microsoft Office, when Microsoft Office was first released, you got this little Clippy guy who told you how to do, open a document and print stuff? I look forward to Clippy coming back when I get a phishing email that says, this is a phishing email, don't click on this link. Tens of your other employees got the same phishing email. AI is a great type of solution for things like that. So bring back Clippy for me.
But like Terminator Clippy. Yeah, I think yes, triage is an obvious answer to how it's being used today, but I think that the most exciting elements are what Rob was pointing out, like if you can interface with the software, you can lower the barrier to entry for your workforce. Maybe you don't have to rely on people with extensive like SQL query capabilities. They can just begin to ask the tools, where have I seen this in the environment? Can you help me reverse engineer this like in plain language, and it spit back the code to you? Please isolate, where is it obfuscating its own code? Like being able to do that much faster at a human conversational rate is very early days right now, and maybe just the leading edge, but I think that's going to become very normal very soon.
Nice. I want to follow up with you, Rob. You're a CISO. How do you feel that leadership plays a part in incorporating and adapting AI?
It's kind of like that, I think, Gartner hype cycle. And usually when a new technology comes out, people don't understand it, so naturally they're scared of it. And it's really kind of getting in there first to understand, well, what is it that we're looking at? And again, just very much an infancy. I'm going to be quite honest. My bank does not block ChatGPT. We never have. When ChatGPT was first announced, we figured, instead of blocking it, let's figure out how to make this work for our employees and put in the right controls, which is really just looking at what do we have today, and is it sufficient enough, or what do we need to do to change? And we made those conscious decisions. Our CISO led that decision. And we got a lot of pressure in the market, to be quite honest, because the US banks, they pretty much blocked ChatGPT, except for a few certain areas. From a Canadian banking perspective, the same. So to me, it took kind of that innovative thinking and approach. And we didn't make that decision alone. We made it with IT, we made it with legal, we made it with privacy. And we said, okay, there's some risks associated with this unknown. Are we willing to deal with these risks? And we did risk modeling and threat risk assessments to say, okay, what is the worst situation that could happen? And in our case, it was data leakage. That was the biggest threat that we felt that ChatGPT could introduce, using that one specific example. To kind of amplify my friend's point here, AI machine learning has been around forever. For those of you who use tools like IBM QRadar, Watson has been around forever. They've been using it in healthcare forever. It's not necessarily a new thing. What I think is new, though, from a generative AI perspective, is that kind of content personalization, that content creation, as opposed to just machine learning and summarization. I think that's the newest model. But again, as a CISO, to answer the short question, lead it. Be there, enable the business. It is an information security risk, but at the end of the day, the use cases are business enabling use cases.
I want to ask you guys to discuss the potential of fostering collaboration, data sharing and information sharing with other organizations. Like, how do we start fostering this and utilizing and sharing information, not just within your bank or within your organization, but from your organization out to other organizations?
Yeah, I mean, none of us can learn a new technology on our own. And to Rob's point about getting there first and getting internal buy-in and enabling that use, I would say that in very large organizations, different lines of business are going to have different use cases. Sales and marketing are always going to go full throttle on whatever makes their job easier. But how do they work to understand policies with GRC? And like every line of business is going to have their own interest in AI, and they all kind of need to come together and kind of form maybe an internal observatory. But within industry, I mean, we have like FSISAC and financial services, like you don't have to do it by yourself. And I would not encourage anyone to do that. And if you're an employee, you probably belong to several discords or working groups. You want to go out there and share, like, I was trying this thing. I wrote this LangChain script and I got it to do this, but it sort of broke up. I mean, you have to get out there and be very open to experimentation, and also I would fail in public. Like, be like, we tried to do this and it didn't work. Does anyone have any insights? But if you're just sort of like huddled around the campfire trying to do it on your own, I mean, you're probably just, one, you're going to get, someone's going to leapfrog you because collaboration is always better. And then two, you're probably just going to succumb to like the hype cycle fears, like all of the US banks that sort of freaked out about ChatGPT.
I'll take a bit of a different spin on this in that I feel like with this it enables productivity. I know when I get back to my office, I'm going to have probably 1,000 emails that are unread that I will never get through, and using things like AI can summarize those for me. And so that frees me up to actually have conversations with other parts of the business versus being stuck in email jail all the week. So.
Select all markets, right?
It may be a surprise if you guys don't know this. Canada is actually one of the leading countries when it comes to AI. A lot of our talent in the world actually comes from places like Ontario, University of Toronto, Waterloo. So when I think about that, I think we're in a really good position. And then when I think about information sharing, we're also equally in a good position. When I look at the federal government, things like the Canadian Cyber Center for Security, the Anti-Fraud Center, but then even I look at kind of the nonprofit kind of arms that we have. I'm going to talk up CCTX because wherever I go, when people ask me about information sharing, I always bring up CCTX, the Canadian Cyber Threat Exchange. And if you don't know what that is, definitely Google it because every vertical could benefit from that kind of information sharing. When it comes to financial institutions in particular, we do not compete on things like this. We share IOCs and TTPs with each other very openly. Why? Because if any one of us gets hacked, it erodes the confidence from the citizen in our financial institution, our financial system. That's not a good thing. And second is we're going to get a lot of regulators asking questions, and chances are our costs are going to go up. So it's none of it our best interest to get hacked or to have AI type of data leakage type of issues. So again, be collaborative on this stuff. There's no point in being competitive when it comes to cyber. When it comes to like business and products and things like that, yeah, of course, that's why we're here. But when it comes to cybersecurity in particular, it is a massive team sport, which includes cross-industry collaboration.
Oh, I love that. So learn from each other and share information will make you stronger and better secure. Okay, now we've talked about organizations and sharing data across organizations. What should these professionals be doing to keep up with learning and getting ahead with cybersecurity?
You just have to read everything. I think you have to really curate your media diet. I also use a lot of LLM tools to help me quickly summarize and essentially triage, like preprint papers, podcasts. I'm in a group that developed some sophisticated prompts to help us extract a lot from YouTube videos and whatever, and you can take a quick glance at it and you can be like, oh, that's not worth my time, and you can skip on. But again, when it comes back to sharing and talking, like the sources that I listen to or read every day are different than the ones that my friends are because they have different priorities. They may be on the more technical research side, some might be on the application security side, and I just am content the fact that I will not listen to all of it or read all of it, but I need to be able to vary the diet, and I do that through friends and collaboration.
So I'm curious, by a show of hands, who has not used a chat tool at this point? Because I think from an education standpoint, what George mentioned is top, right? Like be out there and experimenting and learning. And how do you educate your business if you don't know yourself? So.
Very little I can add to that. It's really continuous education and continuous effort. Most of the people I'm seeing right now in front of me are data scientists. Like you guys exist and your cybersecurity is your thing because this is kind of what your passion is. In any job, if you don't do continuous education, you're not going to be competitive in the marketplace. So similar to AI, to me, it's a great way to read. I'll give you one story. When I was in my early 20s, I was presenting and I got asked a question which I had no clue about. But I was also cocky enough not to say that. So I went to the bathroom. I did so much homework on Google, and I came up with what I call a half-assed answer. If I was in that situation again, at that age again, I probably still would say, yeah, give me a couple of seconds, but I would use ChatGPT to summarize it in a very beautiful way, and I'd probably regurgitate that. Again, it's that continuous education. I'm not saying that was a really good example because I had no idea what I was talking about, but it's so important for us to realize when we fail at our knowledge. So when we know we need an expert's help, I am definitely not an expert in all things cybersecurity. I can't code in Python anymore. There's a lot of things I can't do anymore just because I haven't done it in such a long time. And I rely on experts now to do that. Similar to the tool of ChatGPT or OpenAI, I'm going to be relying a lot more on tools. But again, back in the day, I still need that critical thinking. I still need that experience that I had as a professional to understand what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong.
I love it. So I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on how AI can contribute to the development of cybersecurity solutions and how we can help use how AI can help be used to look at emerging threats.
Yeah, one thing I'm really excited about is I'm gonna start like philosophical, but we'll get to the practical. So today's cybersecurity environment relies heavily on analysis. Humans to do a lot of analysis and a lot of specialization. We got our red teams, you got your SOC leads, you have your incident responders, GRC, and we have that because it was impossible for one human to hold it all in their brain. But those narrow applications are what machine learning is really good at and can do orders of magnitude faster than humans. So I am looking forward to the evolution of security teams, the role graduating from analysis to orchestration. Right? It becomes more about getting different machine tools to talk to different machine tools and orchestrating a response much faster across the organization. So we go less from like sort of conveyor belt onto like maybe we swarm incidents. So I've already seen this, like NVIDIA published its red team methodology, and if you read that deeply, it's very multidisciplinary. GRC is across the top. They work with AI engineers, ethicists, and the red teamers, and they're all swarming these products and these problems and working together. And I would love to see more of that, less silo. I think that's where we're headed, and I think AI will help get us there. But practitioner.
Over to her.
So from my perspective with my team, in terms of how we use this in the future, going from heuristic algorithms, which is like 1 + 1 = 2, and it's always static, to more dynamic algorithms, so real-time learning. So as these attackers are using these tools and evolving, my team needs to be able to evolve just as fast, and really even faster. Like we need to be able to predict that, hey, here's this pattern that's happening. We think this is going to be a fraudster, or we think this is going to be a compromise, and stop it in advance. So.
I think predictive threat modeling is extremely important. Like that's going to be a huge game changer. It's going to reduce the workload of the SOC analyst significantly. Not necessarily from a security perspective, but I just think that it will help improve the security experience or the user experience. So what do I mean by that? When you go to McDonald's in any country and you order a Big Mac, it's going to taste the same. And McDonald's makes a lot of investment to make sure you get that same product. I would like it from a global banking perspective, dealing with my bank. Whenever you go to Mexico, Peru, Chile, Colombia, Ireland, London, New York, Canada, you get the same security experience, the same multi-factor authentication prompts, the same risk adaptive engine behind it, the same, oh, you got fish, let me help you type of customer experience. I think AI is going to go a large way into doing that. And ideally, again, in my native language, because at the end of the day, security situations are usually not positive customer experiences. I'm shocked too. I'm also shocked that people use the same username and password on every website, which is causing all these types of attacks. So AI can help with that. Or even better yet, one day when I go into a website and I type in my username and password, my browser gives me a pop-up and says, dude, don't use that same password everywhere. Like I would love AI to get that kind of predictive. We're still far away. Still a lot of the control is down to the user. So if we can extrapolate and create those guardrails for the user using AI, I think we're going to have a better user security experience, and it's going to reduce the workload of security analysts.
Okay, we've been on the positive side. We're going to go to the dark side. Do you think, you guys are ready, do you think there are threat models that we are not prepared for?
100%. You guys have seen stuff that we have not seen before. I don't even know what they are. 3 weeks from now, we'd be like, oh my God. And then we're suddenly going to be like scrambling on this new type of attack. All I can say is whenever I think I know something, someone else comes around and shows me how little I do know. So yeah, I think we're just in the infancy. I think we're going to start seeing things like omni-channel type of attacks. Things like we start with a phishing site, it ends up with an IVR, which ends up with a person walking into a branch with fake ID, pretending to be you, getting mortgages for you. We haven't seen any of that kind of advanced type of attacks yet. And if we even, oh, have we? Okay, maybe Microsoft has. And if I go maybe 50 years in the future, we're going to have AI Arnold Schwarzeneggers walking around with Skynet and robotic drones and automation and arresting people. So I look to the movies to always kind of like predict what the future would look like. And sometimes they get it right, and sometimes they get it wrong. But again, I'm really excited about where this world is going to and where technology is going to.
Yeah, I think about the speed of development, the versatility of the applications, and the availability. And you said in your presentation about how the cost of like voice cloning and it becomes a service, like the commodification of phishing kits and ransomware as a service, right? So right now we have a lot of open source model development, which is going to speed up that production and that availability. So it's not really outside the realm of possibility that someone cooks up polymorphic malware that instead of calling to your basic C2 server, calls to a reinforcement learning engine. So it is pinging around in your environment, continuously learning for a really long time before it develops an exploit. I think my great fear is what that does is it changes a defensive paradigm from TTPs and IOCs, that if I am a threat actor and I launch an attack that is pinging your environment to find a weakness, what goes through Scotiabank, even though it came from the same actor, executes entirely differently against TD Bank because it found something entirely different. So then, like, what does that do for our defensive structure? Because you can't have this like standardized TTP or IOC or even hashes to put out because it's like completely bespoke every time. That's the thing that keeps me up at night.
Well, George, stay awake because those things are already happening. And I can't go into those, details in regards to that, but I would say, as, security practitioners, being prepared for 0 days, like constant 0 days, net new attacks every single time. And it's going to be about the risk modeling. Like I think both George and Rob mentioned that. It's no more threat modeling in my mind. It's how do you adapt to risk? What is the risk to your business when these models, come into play?
And what's the risk appetite? Because honestly, you can't get it down to zero. So what are you going to do in balance? What are the trade-offs? The marketing trade-off is a lot different than perhaps the analytics or the transactional enterprise data warehouse type of trade-offs.
All right. I'd like to know, what are your insights into the innovative use of cases where AI has significantly bolstered cybersecurity defenses?
Well, I think we've touched on that, a little bit throughout the conversation, but with my team and fraud and abuse, and a lot of what we deal with is bots. The panelists talked about malware that's for sale, very cheap. They're always adapting that. Basically, they're using models to train themselves on our systems. Like, when did they get caught? When did they not get caught? And for us, it's, again, trying to be a step ahead of those attackers, and like, how do we predict what they're getting ready to do next? And a large part of that is how do you have conversations with other organizations? So not just Microsoft and what we learn, but what about Scotiabank and what have they learned, and how do we build that into our models to protect consumers?
I think a little bit of the security comes as a byproduct, actually. So when I look at kind of the use cases, I don't see a specific kind of use case for cyber related to AI. I see things like, just because it's right there, SentinelOne adding AI to their product roadmap to be a better mousetrap, or Akamai adding AI to their web application firewall and to do better bot detection. As a financial institution, I don't see it specifically. What I do see use cases is largely around code modernization, so moving from legacy to distributed platforms, or translation services, things like Microsoft Teams collaboration type of stuff is a huge benefit because it impacts every employee, and communication kind of underpins just about everything we do. So I'm not necessarily seeing cyber use cases, but more business use cases where cyber is an enabler.
Sometimes the most banal adaptations have a lot of impact. I have a couple of CISO friends who have allowed LLM use for like event reporting and incident response reports. So it's like, oh, if this analyst can just spend less time typing, we can move on to the next thing faster. And that seems like the least sexy innovation, but it does over time accumulate a lot of productivity in the overall security organization.
I love that. What do you think the role of AI plays in education and training and building up our future cybersecurity workforce?
Well, yeah, I'll hand it to Rob in a second, but Shinesa wanted me to share this. This is something I stumbled into. So I think it's really, when we talk about human expression and creativity, I think we can get a lot better than phishing simulations and everyone glazes over at the security awareness training. So I went last week to my daughter's 4th grade class, and I had spent about 30 minutes talking to ChatGPT using the new voice plugin. And I was cooking dinner, and I said, I'm trying to come up with a red versus blue team exercise. It came back with a few ideas. I was like, no, I don't really like that. Like, it's got to be simpler. And this is all back and forth through voice, and it keeps the transcript. So within about 30 minutes, I had an exercise. And then I put it into Gamma, which is a tool I use to build presentations. You just put in a written outline, and it generates it. And then used Midjourney for an image. So I had a red versus blue team exercise for 4th graders in under an hour. And it was a blast. They had a really great time. You would be surprised that 4th graders thought of supply chain attacks and data obfuscation. They didn't call it that, but they definitely thought of those techniques. So I think that there's like a really interesting way that we could like make security interesting, finally, for the rest of the organization that's not in the InfoSec team.
And George has posted about that on LinkedIn. So if you want to see more about it, it's on his LinkedIn. So.
Oh, thank you for that.
Again, my thoughts are more as LLMs and AI as a tool, similar to a calculator. I think students or the emerging workforce needs to know how to embrace and use this tool, not necessarily replace. And I'll give you some examples. In February of this year, we started seeing news that AI was defeating things like the New York bar exam or the doctor's exam, so you can become a certified doctor, and the accuracy was really high. But again, where it stumbled down on was critical thinking and how do you apply that knowledge to the different situations. So I think in terms of memorization and regurgitation, which is a lot what traditional school has been in the past, will morph to critical thinking, soft skills, and basically leadership type of skills and qualities and analytical skills, as opposed to your ability to memorize and regurgitate.
Thank God for that.
Okay. How do you envision the future of AI? I think you guys kind of touched on this, but if there's anywhere you want to get deeper, how do you envision the future of AI in cybersecurity, and what advancements are you most excited about?
I'm going to hand it to Rob.
Well, beyond Clippy coming back, I guess I'm really interested in being able to detect security attacks through logs. We have ridiculous amounts of petabytes in terms of logs on various storage places, and going through that is impossible. And the machine learning tools that we have are, at least today in 2023, have some room for opportunity. I think we're going to get much better at being able to detect, again, that attack or that needle in the haystack of needles in a much more rapid way. 5 years ago, I think the average stat was it takes 254 days for a security team to determine a breach in your organization. We need to get that down to like 0-day styles type of stuff. And AI is going to be the major way to do that. Just because you're dealing with so much data that a human alone can't process that. So you need technology basically to fight technology.
Yeah, I'm not an AI humanist, if that's a thing. So I'm looking forward to being able to unlock human potential where it's like bogged down in spreadsheets, logs, the heavy analysis part. So I think where it can take the cognitive load off of teams so they can spend more time thinking strategically about, okay, we have an incident, where else did we see this? That's one part. But also in the business enablement side. So, okay, the business wants to move forward in this direction. We have these strategic goals for the year. How can I get out of like spreadsheets and reports and think deeply with my team about the controls that we need to put in place to manage that risk and communicate that very clearly to parts of the organization that don't talk InfoSec. So it's really about like enabling the humans in the team to do their best work.
Yeah, and I would echo my panelists. The one thing I would add here is that how I see cybersecurity changing is that right now we have these silos, and I believe the panelists mentioned that. In the future, I see our jobs merging. Like GRC is going to merge with privacy. Privacy is going to merge with data protection. InfoSec, all up is going to merge together. Like it's not going to be these different threads trying to tackle different problems. It's all the same problem in the future.
I love it. Well, we have a couple of extra minutes. Do we have any questions from the audience? I think we have time for like 1 or 2 questions. Come on up to this mic, good sir. Come on down. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun.
Okay, hi everybody. So in fact, I want to more have your thought. You're talking cybersecurity on one hand and how AI can help. Fine, it's great, okay? But I feel in the equation, there is a piece missing in the middle. And what is this piece? Today, if we look what we have in reality on the field in our organization, we have unitary tools. So you have a tool for identity access management, one for ticketing, one for this, one for that, one for that. And they do not talk between themselves. So the smarter way, according to me, you can disagree, you can agree, fine. So it's first to work to make all these tools talk between themselves, very easy. Python, API, they will talk, okay? And then, cerise sur le gâteau, you put AI on top.
Yeah, I think we're at an interesting moment. Rob mentioned Sentinel-1. We also have Microsoft. A lot of companies are charging ahead with AI development. And we're actually at this unique friction point in the market that I don't believe a lot of companies are prepared to uptake that technology. Like they can't assimilate it into their processes because we're talking about technology, but we're forgetting about the process and the people. And I think to your point, right now, teams if you could do threat modeling in 2 minutes, what took you 2 weeks, tomorrow, do you think your team could handle that faster influx of information? And so I think just as much as we think about technology, we have to think about how are we going to innovate these processes to be able to handle that level of cooperation and speed of analysis.
So it's almost as if we can't be as fast as the technology because we wouldn't understand how to use it when it comes across anyway. Yeah. I got you right here.
Oh, it works.
Oh, it works. I got it.
Oh, hello? Okay, yeah. Speaking of collaboration that you said, and I'm glad that you guys are different from different industries, and this is what I'm talking about, the AI, the technology against the technology in terms of defense, red team, blue team. Do you think the future would be like more organization using their own local AI and not collaborating with other, depending any industry, like banks like TD and I would say Scotia coming together to like get more advanced? That's my question for you. Like, do you think collaboration in terms of organization or industry will happen?
I think collaboration will continue to happen because it does happen today. I think we have very prescriptive regulatory frameworks in terms of things we can share and things we can't share. Like, for instance, a malicious attacker that I know is coming from Romania, I can probably even get attribution down to who the actual person is. Maybe they're not using Tor, maybe they're unsophisticated. But because of Canadian privacy legislation, I can't share that information. What I can do is share the attacking IP address, the MD5 checksum, the type of tools that they use, and it's very anonymous type of information. I think AI will be able to help with that. For instance, I was actually speaking with a company from France earlier today that specializes in de-anonymizing voice prints. So when you have voice-based authentication, often some of these tools capture the voice in a database, and that becomes biometric data, which for a company is liable because you have to protect that data. Well, perhaps we can use AI to obfuscate that voice or harmonize that voice or auto-tune that voice. And then we can use that data, such as the interaction between the customer and the call center agent, for training and benefit purposes. Maybe we can actually start sharing that information with the other banks for fraudsters that are trying to fraud all 5 of the banks. We're not there yet. But I think with AI, we will have the enabling type of technologies where we can share information securely and preserving privacy where we need to meet our legislative requirements.
Hello. First of all, thanks for an interesting talk. One thing that bugs me and what I also hear from my colleagues in the field is what you mentioned, the information disclosure, the potential information disclosure by AI. Indeed, also we see this very much. The question is, in lack of regulation, in the lack of current framework, so to say, to handle this, how do you handle this? Can you give some insight how you came to the conclusion to say, we take this risk, we apply this?
So we did a threat risk assessment on the AI offerings. Like we analyzed Google Bard, we analyzed ChatGPT and OpenAI. We analyzed them as your tenant, and we looked at how does our data feed into the tool? What type of protections does the tool have, not to just share the data, but also to use the data for ongoing learning. Like for instance, we would fail if we sent all of our risk management models to ChatGPT, and then someone in the public can ask ChatGPT, show me the Canadian Bank's risk management models for loan approvals. So we make a concerted effort not to put that stuff in there. Now, for the odd employee that decides to upload data into ChatGPT, that's confidential or restricted, we have policies that says you shouldn't be doing this. We also have monitoring tools in place that if they do it, bad things usually happen. So it's not that there's not controls around it. We made a concerted effort on understanding what those controls are and what the limitations are.
I'd like to add to that I feel like education is a big piece of that, and educating your business about the benefits, but also the risks of using these tools, and then bringing other people to have a seat at the table. So not just your security professionals, but legal and data and privacy. So you're all having the same conversation.
And I would actually point out in the NIST AI risk management framework in the current draft, under governance, it specifically stipulates that you should have multidisciplinary expertise and a diverse set of views when forming your own risk management framework for AI tooling.
Hi guys. We already talked about implementing AI in cybersecurity, and my question is, don't you think that it will eventually become a threat by itself? Because in order to train the AI, you have to have a database, and at a certain point, basically, that's going to become your crown jewel. And you're going to protect your basically AI database and not doing your business pretty much. So it's don't you think that it's a kind of chicken and egg problem?
You bring up a great point, and I think you had also asked this. Here is the unique problem that I think is going to happen is the well-worn analogy is cybersecurity is like the safety mechanisms on a car, right? The business can get from point A to B because you have these risk controls like brakes, whatever. What you're asking, which I think is the truth, is if a business onboards AI into its business operations, in order to be of any value, the model has to sit very close to the data. It has to analyze it in real time. It has to write to it in real time, which I think has pretty profound implications for our traditional CIA triad. So now it's like security teams will be asked to defend the car's engine in real time. So it's not just the business as it moves, but the actual sort of like engines and machinery of the business itself. I don't know that we've fully wrapped our heads around that, but you do bring up a good point that it has to be connected to the data. And I would point everyone to Adrian Wood, who is a researcher who released the most profound paper I saw at DEF CON this year, in which he poisoned open source models and rode those in on organizations and was able to detonate both during the training and at the data layer undetected. We do not have any technology that would detect a poisoned ML model right now.
There's some new vendors spinning up around that.
Yeah.
So had a conversation
It's a matter of time. It's the cat and mouse, right?
Yeah.
Hello, thank you. So my question is, I like George's comment about having these RL agents that kind of maybe learn how to do some penetration testing on some environment. Is there any work into defensive reinforcement learning agents that are learning how to defend against certain type of attacks? Thank you.
So there aren't things that I can share at the moment, except to say that yes, those things are happening. Not only at Microsoft, but there are vendors who are spinning up in regards to the LLM poisoning and thinking about how you protect that infrastructure. And to me, at the end of the day, talking about the people, process, and technology, what I said about different functions coming together, that's what's going to protect that engine that George just mentioned.
One last question.
Yeah, just a question. If we are bringing the AI in the cybersecurity and to manage and to make decision, some decision may block operation. The responsibility is for who? For the AI algorithm or for the cybersecurity responsible if there is an impact made to the business related to AI decision.
So it's a tool. LLM and AI is a tool. You need that critical thinking to validate the accuracy. If you are going based on what your LLM is telling you without that level of oversight, I'm sorry, it's not going to work out well for you. You also have existing models. So we're in business well before AI has come around. You have existing models, existing risk tolerances, risk appetites. You know what your output's going to be depending on the type of data and models that you feed it. I would say grow incrementally with LLM. Use the LLM to validate your existing models and then go further with it and see what you can do and innovate with it. I think the whole market around LLM and AI business logic controls is very emerging. Right now we're still talking about cybersecurity basic stuff, like data leakage and polymorphic viruses. Similar to API security, like looking for buffer overflows and cross-site scripting issues and API security flaws, that's one thing. The hard stuff is business logic flaws and being able to circumvent API controls without generating an IPS alert.
That's it. Well, we want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your input. As you've learned today, first learn all you can, utilize AI to advance yourself, and then do sharing throughout your organization. And don't be afraid of it, because you are unique, you are human, and you will always be necessary in this field. So thank you for your time. Have a good day.